Go ahead,
Article
keep going.
14, 256 Mammoth Road buildings, also known as Lions Hall, to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate $500,000 to begin repairs and upgrades for the town to the town-owned building known as Lions Hall. And further, to authorize the use of $500,000 from the June 30th unassigned fund balance towards this appropriation. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Section 6, and will not lapse until the earlier of the completion of this of its purpose or June 30th, 2030. If passed, this article will require the town to raise $0 in property taxes, resulting in a tax impact of blank for FY25 upon proposed assessed values. So, Justin,
That will be 0 as well.
zero as well.
I'm expecting questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened?
So when,
It doesn't have to go to the, it
That's
doesn't have to,
great.
well, it doesn't have to go to the deliberative. That's why it's on here. So if you want to do this, then we'll do it.
Okay.
If you don't want to do this, then we won't do it.
Okay.
Everyone wanted an answer. This brings it to a head. So this, and it doesn't have to go to the ballot. So you all have to say, what do you want to do, council? I mean, because we batted this thing around for 3 or 4 months.
Did we ever get any quotes or anything on anything that we asked for?
Well, we've gotten numbers anywhere ranging between 800 and 50,000-ish to put the place back in shape, but not to make it ADA, required. And or we can leave it and let it go till the next year. But at least it finally answers the question. Do you want to do it or don't you want to do it? I mean, if the people want to leave it for another year and we mothball it for another year, let's mothball it for another year. We may be able to just fix the floor and at least maintain the building. But this brings it to a head.
Is there an option to just fix the floor? Can we ask John that, or?
Well, I mean, there's always options. I mean, we probably have some ARPA funds we might be able to tap into. We might be able to find some money at the end of this fiscal year to do some work on it. But instead of this thing sitting out there for the next year and not getting addressed, at least now it's getting addressed. And if you don't want to do it, let's not do it.
What do we see the 500,000 accomplishing?
It probably puts the building back in service.
Yeah.
At, with the bare minimum.
Correct.
But if you don't want to do it, then let's not do it. If you don't want to, if you only want to do 50% from the undesignated fund balance and 50% to the taxpayers, then let's do that. Or don't move it to the warrant. We can do that too. But we can't just do nothing. So it's up to you all.
Before we appropriate the money, I'd just like to see if we had some quotes, some actual figures to
Dave.
know. Like, is it enough,
Well, no, it's not enough.
No, I know, so,
No, it says right
No.
here, it's not enough.
Right.
It's the start,
right.
the repairs. No, it's definitely not enough. Or the answer is kick the can down the road and we'll deal with it next year.
All right. Where do we dive in here? Yes, I did get some quotes for some of the at least some of the disciplines. Some of the stuff it's hard to price out because you don't know exactly what you're going to need to do until you get into the walls. But I put together just a little something on what I do have, and so when I looked at putting some pricing together for at least a metal ADA ramp, which you're probably more familiar with seeing in front of people's homes and whatnot, but this price that I got was for, commercial grade and whatnot. We could potentially use the side to get them in on the, into the hall, which it may not make us compliant, but it gives us our accessibility that we need. I got prices for electrical work, a smoke alarm system, the approach that we discussed with our advisors on this for the approach to fixing the floor so that it never falls in again by filling that void with flowable fill and doing a concrete type slab. Plumbing, and HVAC. Those quotes brought me to 609,000 plus. Didn't have any pricing on insulation yet, but I think it's fairly obvious that we're going to have to insulate the building more appropriately than it is at all. There's been no hazmat assessment done on the building, but I suspect that we will find certain things in there. I do know I have a stack of asbestos tiles in the closet, so there's got to be a reason why they're there. They're probably encapsulated at some point under the flooring in the remainder of the first floor. We did get a price for fire sprinklers just so that we have it, but in order to do that, we'd probably have to spend about another $30,000 on site work to get the water to the property to put in the $100,000 fire sprinklers. And then there's the whole gambit of, these are just prices for them to do their work, but there's a lot of work that has to happen in order for the electricians to put the wiring in the wall. There's sheetrock that needs to be removed. There's demolition work that needs to be done. There's certain things that need to be removed for them to do their work and then put back. So I was able to solicit and get some hourly on, having a supervisor with demo price per hour, framing per hour, drywall, carpenter, and general labor. So I do have some hourlies on that, but I don't have exact estimates on how much of that it would be in order to get to do the other 609,000. And then, like I said, this gets us to a baseline where we didn't, the other stuff that we had looked at, the conceptuals and whatnot, that's all gone. There's no site work, there's no exterior work, there's no preservation work, so any of the tin sealing and all that and bringing back the look of the timing, that's all gone. There are no additional bathrooms. The kitchen will have to go in order to get the bathrooms to the size that we need them to be for ADA compliant. So there will be no kitchen of sort, no office space. The septic we'll leave it as is and hope for the best. No landscaping, and then the second floor we're not doing anything up there. We're just going to close it off. So that's kind of where we're at. There's still a lot of
$900,000.
Yeah, I would say with the work that we don't know how many hours it's going to take, coupled with some of the price quotes we got, and then we'll need to have some form of a project manager or something to that extent that's a little bit more. It's going to have to be make some professional engineer questions on certain things that are discovered when we get into a project of this magnitude.
So, council, the question is, do you want to kill it? Do you want to change the number? What do you want to do?
I think, in my opinion, I think that I appreciate the work that, Dave, you put into this project so far to date, and a lot of work to even hold the town hall meetings and stuff. But I think that the building is definitely worth, in my opinion, holding because of the preservation of that building. And in my opinion, I think if we were to hold it and move it to next year, it would probably be more appropriate so that we can give it the justice it's due, if that makes sense.
It's up to you all.
I agree.
This at least brings it to a head. One way or the other we go.
So, I think we should hold off.
And I too think that we need to have more fine-tuned numbers to be able to move ahead so that the public's more aware. And, yeah, we can put forth 500,000 as a holding place for a future, but we really should know what the real numbers are gonna be costing us. Because in the end, it very well could be way more than $1 million, and it could be closer to what the engineering company actually came up with. So,
yeah,
I would hate to just put money aside when really it's just a drop in the bucket.
I matched some of these numbers up to some of what the engineers' estimates were in our evaluation of the building and whatnot, and they're pretty close. They really are.
Yeah.
I thought they would be.
But obviously we were doing a lot more we were doing a top-down total, making the whole place functional. My reservations and uneasiness is that we still really didn't take that next step of, doing the due diligence work, knowing exactly if we hazardous materials, what it's going to take to deal with it. I mean, even if we demoed the building, we'd have to still do that analysis because they need to know what they're taking away.
So you're even proposing to hold off?
Well, that's your decision. Don't put that on me.
I understand that, but also I'm not an
telling you-
engineer.
I'm just
You can
telling
say
you
the
what I
whole
have
lot.
for information.
Don't put words in his mouth.
But it was tough to get some of these numbers together because I didn't even have a plan to give them on, well, exactly, how much wiring are you doing, what types of wiring, are you, they were asking, questions like, are you gonna have a generator? Because if you're gonna have a generator, is it gonna do the whole facility, some of the facility? That then changes the type of wiring you use. Are you doing, so, and I'm not an electrical engineer, so sometimes we're gonna need some of that kind of information to even get some of this work done, I'd hate to wire the building and then, we do get it, accessible to an extent to the public, and then we get some new energy and excitement about it and say, yeah, well, let's get the second floor going again, and okay, well, then in order to put in the lift, we find out that we didn't run the power to it that we should have had in that area, and now we gotta open up walls again in that nature, so,
Okay?
Yep, I'm good.
So,
Well, this is, like I said, this is strictly to bring it to a head. I'm gonna ask for a motion to eliminate this, but I'll accept any other comments.
So I will say I'm glad to hear that the outside numbers that Dave was finding were in tune with our outside engineering firm's numbers, and they were not pie-in-the-sky numbers. So, I think it was very fruitful in us to go to the outside engineering firm and find out what it would actually cost,
Yeah.
and that it was worth our time to do so. And, I think, in fine-tuning these numbers over the next year, we may find that it may actually come back up to what the engineering firm
And to
was.
make it real too, all the vendors that we spoke to were Londonderry-based, with the exception of the ADA metal ramp. And then the only GC that I could get to come out was actually from Merrimack Valley area to give me those hourly rates. So, but he gauged them to New Hampshire rates, not prevailing wages in Massachusetts. So.
Of course.
So can I suggest something?
Sure.
Would it be too weird or whatever to say just, do you guys want to do something with the Lions Hall and give it to the voters? Instead of doing all this kind of guesswork?
Well, we would have had, it's a little late in the process to put a question on the ballot.
Okay, because we're going to dismiss it, it sounds like, this year,
Well,
right?
what I'm gonna ask for is, based on what I've heard from the council, the way the council feels is, I'm gonna ask for them to make a motion to eliminate Article 14 from the deliberative.
Or if,
But at least this brings it to a head, so that we now have to pick a path forward after this.
yeah, I mean, if you don't want to move forward with it at all, that I respect your decisions. I guess I would then ask in return, what am I doing? Am I just, are we just keeping the building as it is now, which is fine. It's not, we're not neglecting it, okay? I'm plowing the parking lot. We're keeping the heat at the levels that are respectable. We're keeping the AC. We find little issues, we deal with them. And mothballing it for another year is not a problem. But if we do nothing in that year, we're going to be sitting right here again, not knowing.
Well, from what I'm hearing from this sitting council is that they want to bring this to the voters next year as a warrant. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay.
As far as what Dave can do now,
yeah.
is clean it up,
Is what?
clean it out.
Oh, it's empty.
Empty, the back rooms are all.
Well,
empty. Swell. I did.
there's some items in the back end of the building that are being stored there.
Okay, so we're gonna clean it up,
Well-
including the attic.
Well,
I mean, if we're gonna mothball it, let's clean everything out.
well, I don't want to send employees into that attic and getting things airborne without knowing exactly
Okay.
what that stuff is. The stuff in the back, if you want me to tell those that own it to get it out of there, fine. But the town does utilize them for certain events, for home stay and
Well,
whatnot. But I can do
let's,
that.
I guess as he said, let's organize it.
I'm sorry.
Let's organize it
Yeah.
versus the way it is right now.
Understood.
And then I'd also include with that is going forth over the next year, fine-tuning the numbers upon what exactly we really need, so that we have a
Well,
better picture.
you're making a commitment here that,
Yeah. So I mean,
that the council's, there's gonna be 4 of us here next year who are here for sure, as long as we're all alive, that, you're gonna bring this to the warrant next year.
yeah, and
Yep.
in order to do the finalization of what we were going to, I've got it laid out. We can phase it, whatever, but it's costly to do it. But to get the final set of plans and whatnot, you're looking at a tune of almost $200,000. So, That's to do the hazmat analysis, get a final plan, get engineered plans that we could put out to bids and then cherry pick what it is
Okay.
how much of it do we want to do? Do we want to do it in a year, 2 years, 3 years? But do it in a sequential order that makes sense so that we're not, thinking about what may come and then not running the appropriate power to a certain point, or, like, for example, for the bathrooms, the original conceptual was also going to have bathrooms at the back, and the new septic system was going to go in the back. So if we fix the floor, what I had the plumber doing was putting in the pipe dry, because if we're going to renovate just the front ones, the septic's in the front. So I don't want to not have a pipe underneath the concrete and then have to rip the whole floor up again if we decide to go with more rooms in the back or the expansion that we were talking about. And then all the plumbing's got to get redone to send it to the new septic system in the back, as opposed to what's in the front. So there's a lot to get together.
Okay, so I'm gonna accept the motion to, oh, go ahead, Heather.
Sorry. Dave.
Hello.
Heather Burkary, 132 Pillsbury Road. I just want to say, and I'm not wishing anything on anybody's warrants, I appreciate the work that's gone on into them. If warrant Article 3 does not pass, and that ARPA money that can very valuably be used for community improvements as well, that would be about $2 million. If that could be proposed to be used for $1 million towards the Lions Hall and maybe $1 million towards pickleball courts. But Lions Hall first. But I'm just saying that might be a good use of that would be a good use of those funds if we had them available to use to be obligated by December 2024.
And that can be discussed after the election, because we have a little bit of time.
Just throwing it out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, apparently we're allowing public comment, is that right?
Yes.
I am.
it's a public
I
hearing.
was just saying not to speak while he was speaking, that's all. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you were looking to talk and he wasn't done, so.
Oh,
go
I don't
ahead.
want to talk over you. No, you had a lot to say. Okay, so Ray Bresson, 3 Gary Drive.
Hey, Ray.
Okay, so currently
Two, Garrett, three.
Three.
this is not funny anymore. Okay, look. I believe we've spent over $36,000 so far for Weston Sampson to do a big study about this. Okay? We've also talked to the general public, and the general public has made it perfectly clear that they would like to save the building for some purpose, which at this point, nobody has decided what it's going to be used for. The Lions people used it for a long time, that somehow they managed and got along. Now, the building is not in good shape. We know that. Work needs to be done, okay? So, what we need to decide here, somebody needs to decide, is what exactly are we going to do with the building? Do we have any kind of a plan what we're going to do with the building? Are we going to save the building or not? We've listened to the general public. The general public considers it a historic building, and they would like to save it. That has been pretty clear. I think everybody understands that, okay? So, I don't understand the problem of you moving it to a warrant article and letting the people decide. But we have to know what, for instance, if it's going to be $500,000, what that money is going to be used for. We need to have a plan. With all due respect, with everything that, what's your name again?
Al.
He spent a lot of time on this. We've spent a lot of money on this. The people have spoken. Well, apparently, the general consensus is we don't want to save the building. We don't want to tear it down. It would probably cost more money to tear the thing down. Okay. So I don't understand why we're not going to continue to put it on a warrant article. It's either going to be passed or it's not going to be passed. But it's extremely important what the money is going to be used for. All this about insulating the building and doing this and doing that and putting in the lift and so forth may happen down the road when and if we decide what we're going to use the building for. What needs to be happened, we need to take care of the floor. We need to take care of the foundation, and we need to take care of the drainage. I'm saying that's what needs to be done. Now, we do have, from Weston Sampson, some cost on some of those items, but not in great detail, and I think we need to know that. Putting it down the road, we know the price is going to go up, okay? And then we're going to decide what we're going to do with the building. I think we have to decide whether we're going to save the building or not, and if we are, what are we going to do with it? And beyond that, what are we going to use it for?
All set?
Did I speak too strongly?
No.
I'm sorry.
All set? Thank you.
Is the problem with it being $500,000 that doesn't cover nearly enough to renovate what would make the building useful? And on top of that, if we do some of the projects like he was talking about, like the floor and the foundations, that we may end up needing to potentially redo some of those projects because we haven't gone through a full detailed design process, and thus we wasted some of that money because we need to go back and redo some of the stuff that we already did.
That's precisely correct.
That's what I assumed.
Is
Okay,
that
thank you.
If we kind of go at it this course, that's some of my reservations, is that, you know, we're not thinking in the totality of what we see it becoming, and then we end up closing up a wall, and then we have to reopen it, or we didn't put a pipe where we needed it, and whatnot.
Yeah, okay.
The floor, I know the floor is what kicked this all off, but quite honestly, that's the last thing that I'm concerned about with having to remedy, because it's just it's nothing structural per se to the overall facility, and you know, we have to know what we're going to put through that area before and how we are going to actually do it.
Yes.
Whether if we, you know, do timber frame construction the way is now, or are we going to entertain the idea of doing the flowable fill and the concrete slab, and that way the floor is never falling in ever again. This is round 3 now, and we won't have to worry about that. But so there's a lot of thought before we, you know, make that firm, that what do we need to run from the front of the building to the back of the building and whatnot. So
It just seems like a really, really slippery slope here. We're talking about little costs here, little costs there, and it's just gonna balloon, and it's gonna scare the crap out of me. It really seems like a want to me.
What's a want? I'm sorry.
Lions Hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm just waiting. You ready? Dan
Bouchard.
Dan Bouchard, 8 O'Connell Drive.
I'm Al.
Al. I mean, I appreciate all the work Dave's put in this, and I understand where the council is coming from as far as you want a plan. But I think people in town also want to save that building, and I think putting it off for another year, the price is just going to go up more. I mean, have you given any thought to possibly, since you put 500,000 there, put 500,000 coming out of the undesignated fund balance and raise 500? All right, you don't have to do it. All right, but it gives you that money, if it passes, to look at it and say, all right, we got $1 million. What can we do? Do we need a project manager, or can we use people in-house here that we have, you know, in our building department that knows building and everything else? Just my thought.
But time would allow us to do that. Time will also allow us to look and see if there's our grants. I said this when I was on the budget committee, and I beat it all the time. There's one thing that's better than money. It's free money. And if there's a way that we can get
Nothing is free, Chad.
You
You paid for it somehow.
I understand. You are correct.
Yeah.
But if there's some way that we can do a little bit more research, we have retained, correct me if I'm wrong, a grant writing agency that hosts a database and stuff like that. If we can say, hey, you know, and I don't know, and I don't want to get into this right now, but maybe utilize them to do some research on some grants so that we can give the Morrison House the proper justice that it deserves. That's what
Alliance Hall.
Lions Hall. Thank you.
Reverend Morrison Meeting House.
I think
you. Reverend Morrison. So that's my point. So putting it off is not saying no, it's saying, yes, there are costs that are probably gonna go up.
Sure.
We'd be idiots to say, I'd be an idiot to say otherwise. I'm not accusing anyone else of being an idiot.
But maybe if you put it out there for 500 and 500, and it gets voted down,
And then I can't touch the building.
Then there's, then
Yeah.
it's gonna do,
Then I can't, if it's voted down, I can't touch the building for a year. I can't take any ARPA funds. I can't take any expendable maintenance trust funds. I can't do anything.
you can't even take, okay, you can't take money from the
I
trust
can't-
fund
nothing.
to do repairs or anything like that?
Nothing.
Saying earlier, no means no.
Okay,
Setting myself up in that way.
all right, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna accept a motion to eliminate Article 14.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
On to the new Article